G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here, Sunday morning. They're talking about bushfires and global warming.
Our first responders, fire, police, ambulance, there is a sort of unwritten code. Like senior officers in the Defence Force, we expect them to stay above politics, even in retirement. Now, there have been some notable exceptions, but even so, there was a slight intake of breath in recent days when former New South Wales Fire and Rescue Commissioner Greg Mullins weighed in to the trickiest political debate of the last decade, climate change. He publicly upbraided the Prime Minister for failing to acknowledge the impact of a warming planet on bushfires in Tasmania. And now he's doubling down, joining a delegation that is heading to Canberra this week. Greg Mullins, welcome to Sunday Extra.
Good morning, Hugh.
What's been the reaction so far since you went public?
Look, I've been quite happy with the reaction. People are taking notice, and it wasn't my intention to really get stuck into the Prime Minister. He's got a difficult job, so a lot of different things on his agenda at the moment. But I am frustrated, worried, and frankly a bit scared about the lack of action on climate change, because I've seen the changes over about 50 years of fighting fires. I've read in depth the science behind it, which accords with my observations. It's getting worse, and people are trying to ignore this and wriggle out from our Paris Accord obligations, say that, we don't emit much anyway, who cares? And that really frightens me, because I'm seeing what's happening to the planet.
So what are you seeing? What is the fundamental argument about the dangers of bushfires in a warming age?
Look, to put it in a nutshell, the planet's getting warmer. We're seeing more hot weather. So all we need to look back is January. We were seeing temperatures up near 50 degrees in multiple locations, the 15 hottest places on Earth. I think it was the 15th of January, I'm probably wrong. They were all in Australia. We know that the planet is warming. Hotter, drier, more windy conditions lead to bushfires, and they're becoming uncontrollable. So fire seasons are much longer than they used to be, and the conditions firefighters are facing are more dangerous. So that's it in a nutshell.
What about people who say, look, we're only talking, even at the worst, of just, very small degree differences. There's not much difference between a 30-degree day and a 32-degree day. So, why so much fuss over such small numbers? What does it actually mean, these temperatures, in terms of the behaviour of the land and the plants on it?
Well, I suppose somebody who has never fought a bushfire or looked into the science behind it or the practice behind firefighting could say that, but a couple of degrees can make all the difference between a catastrophic day and just a really bad day. You just have to look at the fire agencies nationally after Black Saturday in 2009. 60 years of firefighting doctrine was turned on its head. We had to change from stay and defend. We said, look, bushfires are survivable, stay in your home, prepare it, to primacy of life. We had to change the National Fire Danger Rating System, add a couple of gradations, and that's because on a scale of 1 to 100, regularly, it was computers keep calculating, unfortunately, and we were getting ratings over 100. That's why we have catastrophic, or in Victoria, they call it code red. We're regularly getting those conditions all around the nation. We never used to get that. So we've had to totally change how we do things, and if that doesn't ring alarm bells for people, I don't know what does. But back to the 2 degrees of warming, if you overall raise the temperature, when you get extremes, they're that much worse. And 1 degree can make a huge difference. It reduces the humidity, it makes the wind stronger. It just makes firefighters' jobs so much more dangerous.
In your private meetings with politicians of all stripes, do you get the feeling that all of them fundamentally get it, but some of them feel as if they have to work language around their understanding because they're trying to maintain a sort of a voter base of supporters?
Look, I'll say something people might find surprising. I've dealt with lots of politicians over the years. I had lots of ministers in my 14 years as commissioner. Every single one of them, didn't matter what side of politics they were from, were heavily committed people, highly committed people who wanted to do their best. And what I've found, yes, people do understand climate change, but there's ideological ideological issues within some of the parties that prevents them from acknowledging that publicly. We're starting to see some of the state branches changing that, but I think most of the public realise that climate change is happening and are getting out of this denial spiral, which, again, as I said, really frightens me, because if we don't take action now, it's not going to be us, it'll be our grandkids, their grandkids, who see the huge impacts.
Well, increasingly we see it ourselves, we don't have to wait for the grandkids' age. What are you hoping to achieve when you do go down to Canberra?
Look at decisive action and just an understanding. After this hot year, 2018, the 4 hottest years in the world were the last 4, 2016 being the hottest and closely followed by 2018. We saw the extremes. We saw this year areas burning that should never burn, subtropical rainforest up past Mackay, alpine areas in Tasmania. They've never had fire before. We'll probably lose trees that are 1,000 years old. They'll probably never regenerate because they're not adapted to fire. So all these things are happening. And I want politicians coming up to an election to say to the electorate, here's where I stand on climate change. I'm committed to taking action. I'm not going to fudge the figures and pretend it's not that big a deal. I will actually read the science.
Now, what would you make to the argument, which is has always been there, really, that we make 1.3% of global emissions? If we were to zero our emissions, it makes no difference in a global sense. It's not to do anything in Australia. How do you respond to that argument?
I look total cop-out here. That's as a country, we've always pulled our weight, more than our weight, in international affairs, and I've been involved with the UN on disaster relief, and Australia is incredibly admired around the world because they stand up on issues. And I remember many years ago I was on a Churchill Fellowship looking at bushfires, and I was in France, and there was an issue about I was barred from water bomber bases because the Australian government had taken a stand on nuclear testing. And I thought, good on them. But on this one, so per capita, we're one of the biggest emitters of carbon and other carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. If we say, look, we really don't need to do anything, why would not other countries follow suit and say, look, it's okay for Australia, and they always do the right thing, so we won't either. We influence big countries like America. We're able to do that because we're such good allies and friends. So we've got to pull our weight, and I just think it's cowardice, and I'm embarrassed that there would even be a suggestion along those lines that this great country won't pull its weight.
Well, it's a message doubtless you'll take to Canberra this week. Greg Mullins, former Commissioner of New South Wales Fire and Rescue, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Hugh.
In just a moment, former High Court Judge Michael Kirby for the year that may be.
Okay, well, I still want to talk about bushfires because this is a video that I've been planning on making for a while. That was a nice lead into it. About 10-15 years ago, I wrote to the then Commissioner Koperberg, and I pointed out to Commissioner Koperberg that I was deeply concerned that although back in the day we had succeeded in putting out the Section 44 fires that were around Glen Innes, and this would have been 2002, might have been 2003. Anyway, we'd had a 6-week operation where people came from Tasmania and New Zealand to help us put out fires here. And I wrote to Koperberg and I said, look, this is all very well and good, but if we keep emitting carbon dioxide, if the world keeps warming, if the fire behaviour keeps changing, then in 15 or 20 years' time, who's going to pay the tax in the jobs that don't exist because global warming has destroyed the agricultural and economic basis of society? Who's going to pay the taxes to buy the fire trucks and put diesel in them and rent the helicopters and the fire bombers and give us the tools to go out there and fight the fire? And I later on spoke face to face with Mr. Koperberg, Commissioner Koperberg, and he didn't actually have any really good answer for those questions. It was like, oh, gee, they're tricky things to think about. And time spilled on. Now, in August, Bullock Mountain caught alight. 3 or 4 kilometres away from me, 3 or 4 miles maybe. I'll just go and have a look at the map. There we have a fire map. There we have the fire. And if we come over to here, that's where I am. Okay, there I am there. And the hut is at the northwest corner of the clearing. So from here to the fire, we're talking 7 kilometres to the other side of the fire, which is actually where it started, and 5 kilometres to the near edge from here. There's a better view. Now, the way this started is somebody was out here and they were welding in a paddock a couple of 100 yards away from the farmhouse, and they didn't have any water, and voila, the fire progressed. And it lit up on a Wednesday, and Thursday and Friday was spent pushing containment lines with a bulldozer, and line pushed in around there, and the idea was to burn from there and from there, and to hold the fire behind the containment lines. There was about 18 hours of a Bell Huey or Iroquois helicopter with a 1-ton bucket, and it's $4,000 an hour, and it put about 192 tons of water on the fire line to hold it while they put in a bulldozer line. And there was kind of 2 crews and 2 trucks, maybe 3 crews and 3 trucks for Thursday and Friday, and then maybe 6 crews for Saturday and Sunday. And you know, my son's the Brigade Captain, therefore I have a fire map, thus and because I have a fair idea of what happened. 5 miles away, upwind of me, I was wrong. It wasn't October, it was September. On the 19th, and the temperature was 16 degrees. And during the fire it was 14 degrees, 17 degrees, 20 degrees, and 21 degrees. It wasn't as still as it is today, but there wasn't much more than 10 miles an hour, perhaps 15 miles per hour of wind, say 15 to 20 kilometres. Here it was as dry as a dead dingo's donga, and there was 37 tonnes of dried cured fuel per hectare on the ground, because all of the trees around here had turned brown and dropped their leaves. A lot of them are now experiencing epicormal regrowth, which is good. That young fella, my lad, tells me that over there on Bullock Mountain he had something like 4.7 square kilometres, and it was 50 tonnes to the hectare. And the New South Wales RFS spent something like $100,000 over 5 days making safe the fire that somebody produced with a welder and no can of water. So, what would it be like if it was 35 degrees and 20 or 30 miles per hour of wind? How would that fire have behaved then? And what's it going to be like next year and in 5 years' time? Because around here we've had 3 degrees of global warming since 2007 by my measurings. And as Greg Mulligan said, or Mullins, whatever the ex-commissioner's name in that broadcast, the official Australian government program is to grow the economy and fart more greenhouse gases and heat the world up and see how long it takes to cook the bloody lot of us. Warble's on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.